So, hello ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching. I am my usual few minutes early because that will just allow me to sort out my phone. So with a bit of luck, let me turn the sound off on that and then click that there, and then with a bit of luck we will then be able to see comments and everything else as we go through here. Hopefully that is all sorted. So we'll just wait a little bit because we're a couple of minutes ahead of 4 o'clock. Hi Avril, thank you for watching. Hi Shirley, thank you also for watching. It's really nice to have people joining and supporting what's going on. I have to say it is lovely. Hi Sue, hi Sunanda, and hello Christine. Thank you so much for watching what I'm up to. It's much appreciated. I hope you're warm enough. Wow, there is a slight problem of working in a conservatory. As we know, I cook in the summer and the winter is a bit like gas mark freeze, so I've got thermal underwear on to keep me warm, a fire at my side blowing hot air, as if I don't speak enough of it in the first place, and a sweatshirt on that's a Christmassy one, just to try and keep myself reasonably warm through the process of this. Hi Anthony, we're just going to wait until 7 before we properly start, because I've got sort of a little announcement that needs to be made, which I hope everyone will enjoy, because as we know this week, Crafting together with All Brands have been doing a homemade gifting activity. Hi Tracy, good evening, thank you for joining us. I know others who speak hot air, Jill. Thank you very much, Anthony. I take it you don't think I talk hot air, which is nice to know. At least I do absolutely know my products inside out, back to front, and hopefully upside down as well. Though I don't recommend that with open lids. Wonder how I found that out. Yes, I knocked a pot over earlier on today and made a right mess with another form of one of the powders that I have from Pentart. But hey ho. So we are bang on 4 o'clock, and I will say this a couple of times through, at least, or maybe 3 times through the course of this, to allow for people to come in and out. So I have design teamed for That's Crafty for several years now, and the lovely Laura and Graham have put together a little gift for you. So a lot of the products I'm going to use today, and a lot of which I would call real basic products, have been loaded on the That's Crafty shop if you just go in and shop as normal, but with the products I've used for the live, and I'll tell you which ones they are as I use them, have all got a 20% discount on them as That's Crafty's gift to those who choose to shop with them for the next week. As I say, it's only on the selected products that I'm using for the live, and but they also do have a crafty sale going on at the moment with some fabulous reductions, as they're having to move their warehouse, and clearly it's easier to move a warehouse when you've got less stock to move, and then they can regroup and restock once the move is completed. Hi Alison, thank you for joining me. It's lovely to see you, and thank you Anthony for putting that link up for me. As I say, it's 20% off the selected products, Pentart products I'm using on the live, as a little crafty gift from That's Crafty to those of you who are supporting me doing the live by watching. Good evening, Elaine. So I bought 3 of these bases, and if I get the angle right, you can see that there are words and there's some bright colours underneath them, and have decorated them. And so I've got a Winter Wonderland animal Christmas tree. I have a Happy Winter snowy tree, and we're going to do a very different version of it today. And see, that's not a nice way of addressing people. Hello, Trouble, what are you up to? So my starting point for this, because this is a plasticized surface from the range, was to coat everything with bonding primer, and that is one of the products that has 20% off, but not in this big size. So, and I've given everything a jolly good coat in that. It's added a little bit of texture, which is fine because that's what I wanted, and it's given me a nice reliable surface that I can then work onto. And I'm going to do this in a monotone combination, so I think it's going to be quite very different to the others. So I'm going to start by, she says, hopefully not covering herself in black paint, by adding some black paint to the top of it, and we're adding white paint to the bottom of it. So there we are. So we're just going to give this a good coat with black paint. This is a black matte acrylic, so it'll look shiny at the moment because clearly I have got a shiny surface and that I'm working with, and it's wet, so it's bound to be. There we are. So, and I'm just using a sponge dauber because it's easy for me to add the layers like that for the flat surfaces, but this has lots of nooks and crannies, so just bet we're going to have a little bit of a fiddly bits while we get everything covered. You can see from the black surface just how good these acrylics are from Pentart, because they're covering my white surface really quite effectively. I might well end up needing a second layer, but as I'm going to be adding different mediums on the top, actually, even if it's not entirely covered, it's not going to be a major big deal. And one of the problems with projects like this, of course, is that you have to pick them up. You've got lots of nooks and crannies to work with and to cover, and you know, it's just part of life, isn't it? There we are. Let's just add some more coverage over that where I can see streaky marks because I've lifted things off. Pop that over there, and we'll turn it round, and then we'll give this a good dry, and then we'll do the bottom. So we're going to use different crackle mediums to the ones I've used on the others. There are lives for both of the other projects, but as I say, this is the one for here, and the lovely Laura and Graham have very kindly agreed a little crafty present for everyone who's watching. If they choose to shop with That's Crafty, they'll get a discount on selected products. And so the bonding primer is one of those selected products, and the acrylic paints, matte, white and black, are also on that list. It's really important to have basic colours in your stash, and acrylic paint is completely different to gesso, so it's worth having a stash of proper black acrylic paint in your armamentarium. Hi Laura, thank you for joining us. That's lovely. Hi Millie, thank you for watching. So I'm just going to give this a little dry, then we'll flip it over and we'll decorate the other side. As I say, I'm using Pentart products, which I think is what everyone would expect me to be using nowadays. and then we will be adding some Stamperia moulds, and I'll have a think about it. We might add a little bit of stenciling, we might not. As I say, we're going to have some fun playing today with a monochrome and black and white and gold. Hi Annie, thank you for joining us from Greece. I really enjoyed your live in crafting moods yesterday. Project was beautiful. It's absolutely worth checking out some of the sites from abroad. Even if you don't speak the language, then nearly always there's someone in the system that will be able to translate for you. And actually, if you are an avid crafter, then actually watching hands and seeing the products will usually be enough for you to understand what goes on. So if you haven't seen the Greek shop Crafting Moods, they do regular lives on a Saturday afternoon at around 4:30 UK time. So in that lull in the afternoon, where so actually quite a convenient time for us to be watching or to have on, maybe as we are prepping tea for the house. There we are. So let's just add this and paint the back, because three-dimensional projects have two sides, which is very inconsiderate of them, but it is what makes them freestanding, and the front and the back does need to be decorated. So forgive me for all of the paint, the drying that's going to happen during the course of this, but I don't know any other way of doing it, and it sort of defeats the object of having it too prepped before the live, I think, to do it all. There we are. So just let me go for that. So you've messaged her the link. Excellent. I'm sure that makes sense to you, Anthony. It is lovely to see everyone joining us on a Sunday afternoon. It's a difficult time of the day, isn't it? We've some of us will have had our Sunday dinners, and some of us will not. It depends on how your household functions. Very much. Ours is always of the evening to accommodate children at work on a Sunday lunchtime, or frequently at work on a Sunday lunchtime. But I also, by having our main meal in the evening, actually I find that I then don't pick many extras, and I'm not looking for extras, so it helps me control my weight a little bit. And as I've always had a bit of an issue with my weight, anything that helps with that, makes my life easy, is so worth it. So there we are. There we are. We are getting there. And yeah, I am being relatively generous with the amount of paint I'm adding, partly because I'm wanting to give myself reasonable coverage and not have to put stuff on multiple layers. I'd rather have it cover it in one go. This black matte acrylic is just lovely to work with, though. It's it's beautifully creamy, spreads well, it's got a reasonable open time for those of you that want to perhaps do some of the one-stroke painting techniques, but isn't open for too long. So let's just tuck that in there. So I'm sure your granddaughter's probably run you ragged over the weekend. They usually have a long list of things that they want to do with grandparents. Annie, I'm glad it's 6 in the evening. In the UK it's 4 o'clock, which is cool, and it's at an in-between time, so it may well be quite good for people over here. You just can't pick a lifetime that's going to suit everyone, no matter what you do. It's just not possible. It really isn't. possible to do that. Whatever you do, someone somewhere in the world is going to be asleep, or it's going to be an ungodly hour for what's going on. The admin team here in this group and are very happy for people to do lives from all over the world. So if you're looking to to do more lives, then I can put you in contact with them, because they're a lovely group, and as I say, the title of the group says it all. It's to support lots of different brands rather than it being affiliated with just one company. So I hope that everyone isn't having too many problems with Facebook. I know there have been quite a lot of issues recently with people being thrown out of lives, with accounts being hacked and blocked, none of which is altogether very helpful. There we are. If we do get thrown out, I will quietly just come back out and come back in again. I've got a couple of my friends who've been blocked from posting but can still do lives. Seems completely bizarre to me, but there we are. But all we can do is our best. Hi Joan, thank you for joining us today. There we are. Right, hopefully that's there. We'll pop that there. I'm going to see how much of a mess I can get in with black paint. It's never a good surface to work with, you know, when it comes to doing projects, because you know you end up with a little bit of black paint, then gets every flipping where, and that's moderately disastrous for some projects. So let me just give my mitts a little wipe before because I'm just about to pick up white acrylic paint. I love these little trees, Elaine. They come from, because I couldn't say it in the other groups, the range. So, and they have all sorts of different shapes that I think will be suitable for altering, and I'm rather hoping that there'll be a few left in the sales probably next week, because I suspect that's when they'll have start reducing their Christmas things, and that will then hopefully allow me to stash a few more for next year at a reduced price. So this is the white acrylic paint, and of course that's really going to show not over the white base, but then I'll shuffle that up there. But I do want an acrylic base over this rather than just my bonding primer, and the white acrylic is one of the reduced price items. And as I say, we've put real basics into the lineup for today, because if you know, everyone needs basics. You can't really craft without them. I don't want to get white on that. So I think it's quite helpful to have and actually basics are often the things that don't get reduced, because people assume that you're going to have to buy them, so they basically keep the price at a standard price. So I'm hoping that we've made the right decision in terms of what I decided to use for the products for this. I mean, obviously everyone has their own budgets, and I appreciate at this time of the year our budgets have other priorities. Hi Charmaine, thank you for joining us. So the little gift that I've organised, Charmaine, for this live is a reduction of 20% from That's Crafty for the lots of the basic products that I am using during the course of the live, just to help with everyone's little crafty purses and hopefully inspire them to pick up their makes and carry on making. So that's my that's crafty Christmas gift to everyone that might want them, and in the process we'll be helping them destash ahead of their shop move. And I can see some bits where I've missed the black. Right, let's give this a little bit of a dry, because I've got this wet on lots of surfaces. And I'm going to touch up the bits of black that I very carefully missed. Thank you, Anthony. Adding the links is much appreciated. What do I do with all the lovely projects? Wow, that is an interesting question. Currently, my Christmas ones are all up in my main room. I tend to pack them up and I keep them because I need them as studio samples these days. Every year I have a throw out of ones that I think have seen better days, and I recycle what I can from them. And go from there. Who have you let in, Charmaine? Someone who was needing to join. So that's what I do with them. And occasionally, if people are very lucky, I might give them as gifts, or I will do an occasional project where I will gift it so that people, you know, particularly where I've doubled up on projects. When I first started doing lives, I had to make a whole project to know exactly where I was going to be going on the one I was doing on the live, and that often meant I had two of things. I don't want that showing. So it's always the same. Whenever you paint anything with black, by the time you've got the shiny black wet surface, you find that there's areas that you've missed. Pain in the butt though it is, that's just what happens. So let me just touch up those bits where it's completely white and give that another frazzle dry in a minute. Alison, I actually regularly destash products that I have finished with, or papers, and I have a couple of crafty friends who make and sell their projects for a living, so that, you know, so that I will give to them, and failing that I will donate my products to our local children's hospice, or to the Ronald McDonald House at the Children's Hospital, because they can always use spare product. In terms of items, I think that's much more difficult, because I don't sell them, and most of the charities can't keep them because they can't prove that they are health and safety compliant, which they have to do if they're then going to sell finished pieces on. So that's not, you know, that's just the reality of life. So let me stick that into there, get rid of that, and get rid of this. I don't know why I've done that, because I've got a whole mountain of extra moulds to paint in a minute, but there we are. Hello Liz, thank you for joining us, that's lovely. Are you new to the group, my darling? If so, a great big warm welcome. It's a very friendly group with a really broad range of people who do lives celebrating all different genres of crafting, and predominantly UK based companies, but not exclusively. So it's a good place to watch and to be part of. There we are, and there's another bit that we've missed, but hey ho. Right, so as I say, we're going monochrome, and for those that you know me well, will know that I like a bit of crackle. And so the universal cracking primer is one of the products that is reduced in price by 20% as a thank you gift for Christmas. The cracking, if there's a crack, I think that's the one that Laura reduced. It may be that she's actually reduced the cracking paste primer rather than the universal one. Either which way, one of them or other will work, and the prices are automatically already reduced on the web, so you don't need to enter any special fangled code that you might forget. The prices will just be there as reduced. And one of the reasons I like this product so very much is that it is heat settable. Hello Anna from Romania, it's lovely to see you joining us here. I love the That's Crafty crackle too. This is a Pentart. I'm going to be using a Pentart crackle. The That's Crafty one is a PCP product, and it is lovely, and it gives a very weathered wood effect, and that is going to be a different effect to the one that I'm going to use today, but it is brilliant and it just works. It really does just work. I'm trying to get this into all of the nooks and the crannies, and I'm picking up paint that hasn't completely dried, but hey ho, so be life. There we are. You see, this is a project that's got lots of nooks and crannies, designed to be fiddly, but not impossible. Note to self when doing lives, pick a project that is more more user friendly. Because it becomes, with all of the little nooks and the crannies, it's quite difficult to get into all of them. Eek. What's that ooh for, Elaine? Right, we'll turn this over. We'll carry on. Make sure we've done all of those. I can't have a project where the backside isn't completed, I'm afraid, ladies. It just has to be done, so bear with while you watch me painting. Thank you for those lovely words. That is so appreciated. I've just had lots of practice and time and opportunity to play with good quality products. And I do think that if with a little bit of watching on television, a little bit of, or on YouTube or on Facebook, a little bit of practice and play, what I do is achievable. It's not that I'm using lots of complicated steps. And I hope that that's why people like what I do, because they feel that they can achieve it. I like making some of the very big statement pieces. It's like watching paint dry. Yeah, it just has to be done. As I say, one of the real good advantages of of the Pentart crackles, with the exception of the fine line crackle, which I really don't like heat drying, the rest of them are very, very, very well behaved, and you can take a heat gun to them, which for a live really makes life much easier. I mean, and you can see that it's drying reasonably quickly. It's not that it isn't drying reasonably quickly. Now I know I actually need to do the Elaine, we don't go near any music whatsoever. because the Facebook police, bless them, seem to be on a mission to stop anything that might vaguely have any music on them. They've recently contacted me about a live that had no music whatsoever, because a certain music company had decreed that it did, and instead of checking that there wasn't any live, they just dropped out the bit that had the music on. Anyway, and I've got another friend who's had a live has been blocked because she posted a live with no, that I listened to as it went out, that had no extra sounds on it whatsoever apart from her crafting, because the football deemed that she had been using football commentary. It makes no sense whatsoever. It seems to me that some of the big organisations can complain and do what they want, cause havoc for everyone else, and those of us that haven't got the resources to fight them then basically end up paying the price, which to me is really not very fair. But hey ho, such is the world of madness. I hope she didn't. I don't remember her saying anything related to footy. And yes, it wasn't good news, I gather, last night. Not that I'm a football fan in any way, shape or form. It bears no interest to me whatsoever. So we just need this to dry before I can paint the base of the tree with the same process. So what we might do is add some colour onto this first, if white is a colour. Yeah, I know, Alison, that they've done that, but thank heavens that she can still do the lives, because she'd be in real trouble, as many businesses that survived lockdown through people doing lives and advertising for them would have been, if they weren't able to do the lives. Oh. You couldn't get on at all. I don't think you were the only one, Charmaine. I don't go live directly through my Facebook page anymore. I always go live via either StreamYard if it's a Pentart live, or through OBS, thanks to Anthony, if it's a non-Facebook live, because non-StreamYard live, because I just find it more reliable. Hello Patricia, welcome to a fairly cold and dark UK. We're doing a monotone with a hint of gold crackle tree this evening. And this is partly my fault, ladies, because the areas that are still white are where I glopped on large quantities. I think if you're struggling to go live through Facebook, it's worth the try to see if you can circumvent it that way. I like it because I can have the dual cameras. You can see who it is that's actually crafting. You might not like to see my ugly mugshot, would be perfectly reasonable comment, but you can also see what I'm doing. So I find it a very good system of working. They have done an upgrade recently, so just be aware if you go back in. I haven't accepted the upgrade yet, so because I often find that upgrades of things upset me hugely. I'm all posh now. I wouldn't say that necessarily. It's a question of needs must, Anthony. I have a feeling some of these areas might have skinned over, and that is fine. So Eeny, meeny, miny. So I have... You've got 3 cameras set up. Oh, I have enough managing with 2. The one on my computer and the one and a separate complete webcam. I just think that it's a proper pain in the back, isn't it? So have I got areas of that are dry enough to paint? So having got this so I can hold it, I can now add more of my primer. We might leave the back of this, of the base, and I'll do that off camera later on, because otherwise we might be here for several cows come home. There we are. We can do the bits that we can do with our fingers out of the way. There we are. And then I can catch up and do the other bits. As I say, it's a little bit of a pain. I like OBS, Charmaine. I have to say, I find it very helpful and very user friendly. But I did have a lot of help to set it up. But once it was set up, I have to say, I really do like using it. Right, let me just pop that onto that down there, and I'm going to lid that and give this another dry before adding the next bit. Hi Kay, thank you for joining us. It's a bit of a headache, isn't it? Is there a certain brand of paintbrushes that you tend to use? Stamperia. But the reality of life is it doesn't really matter which brand you use. If you look after them, a good brand is fine. If you don't look after them, or you then use lots of gluey stuff on them and don't get it all out, cheap and cheerful works just fine. You do need ones where they're not going to shed their bristles though. But my go-to are currently the Stamperia ones, but as I say, it doesn't really matter what brush you use for most things. I do have some magic brushes, or that's what they've been nicknamed, that I use. Elaine, what do you mean, darling? This bit, what am I crafting on, or this bit? If you mean this was a tree blank with words on it from the range. And if you mean this is just a piece of greaseproof paper. When I've had to turn my ring lights on, as you can see from my front picture, and one of the problems for with the ring lights is that when they're on, is that they glare on shiny surfaces. So if you've got a craft mat, a glass craft mat, which I use for all of my cutting, then you get glare. So this is literally just a piece of greaseproof paper. It's cheap as chips. You can buy it in big rolls from catering wholesalers, so it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. And I can scrunch it up at the end of the day, and my main mats don't then end up sticky and covered in paint and things. And if I'm using varnishes, I can just leave my pieces on that, and that solves the problem. So yeah, I find it a very useful surface for working on. So like Anthony says, I would... Have you used the brush we got at the show yet? I have, and they are beautiful for using with inks. You mean... Let me grab them. So I've got one that's new. These ones. They are so soft and dense, and for ink blending, they are absolutely fabulous, and they come from Glitzcraft and are really cost effective. You look at lots of the shows and they're selling these soft white bristle brushes, and I'm sure they're wonderful, but they're quite expensive. Those were 6 for £10, so I can got a whole mountain, and then encourage Charmaine to buy them as well. Not that I have to say she really needed lots of my encouragement to do so. Yeah, I often, and I too find it really helpful for using on lives, because you don't get the glare, and you can use it, as you say, for colour mixing. So I'm using white cracking paste, and this is very different to the That's Crafty Crackle medium, which is fabulous, but gives a very different effect to this. It is a paste. You can apply it with a brush, but pastes in my mind are better off applied with a palette knife. I might well need a brush in the nooks and the crannies, but you just need to, and the reason I like this is that the size of your cracks will vary depending on the thickness of the paste that you put on. Yeah, you did send me over, that is very true, but I think that they're fabulous. The price of them was incredible, and you know, a small company sourcing at sensible prices, clearly not asking people to spend an arm and a leg on what they were, you know, on their products, and you know, so absolutely worth supporting. I don't know if they're on their website, but they might well be, or whether they've got them in for their shows. But as they do quite a lot of shows, it might well be worth you having a look at them. They say they work really, really well for inks. So I totally recommend them. There we are. I'm going to end up with icky mucky sticky fingers. I can feel it happening, but hey ho. And I might just leave the back till tomorrow, rather than subjecting you all to rinse and repeat for the back of this. And I'll see how I feel about, oops, don't want the white one on there. And I can see that in the thinner area there, it's just beginning to crack on its own. I think that I've got a bit of glare, so you might not be able to see it happening quite yet, but the cracks will show imminently, I am sure. This was actually the first my first introduction to Pentart, and I guess that's why it remains one of my go-to love products. So let's give this a dry before I pick it up, and we'll be able to watch the cracks form as it does dry. Well, you might be when I've not got my heat gun in the way of everything. And I will go, and it will go round the sides. I'm bringing my Christmas cake round to yours, do I? I only do faux peaks, Anthony, rather than anything more. So you can see actually on screen how well this is cracking. I've got reasonably thick glare on, and I'm getting nice chunky crackles around that. I love it, Joan, I really do. I just think it works, and you get texture at the same time, and you've got good control. And I like the fact that I can take a heat gun to it. but as I say, I think there are more versions of crackle paste out there than most of us have had hot dinners, and lots of them are slightly different. I think maybe after Christmas, when I've had a chance to recover and think about it, what I might do is grab all of the assorted crackle paste that I happen to have, and mediums that I happen to have in my ridiculously big crafty arsenal, and do a live just going through the different ones, explaining them, because I think there's lots of room for confusion. Yeah, there are lots of them, Joan. You are absolutely right. And some of them work brilliantly, and some of them are a bit more fickle, is the best way of putting it, I think. And some of them are, you like so you like the idea of a live with lots of I love their liquid metal. Yep, it's another great product, isn't it? Yeah. I think the advantage, is that they're essentially chemists, and they make for professional pet quality for people who decorate furniture for a living. They don't make for painters and decorators per se for your walls. So I'm sure I have seen their design team paint whole walls with their products and use them for stenciling, but they are designed to be archival use, rather than just there for a short-term effect. One of the problems I think quite a lot of the the mediums that are sold to crafters have is that they do their job, but they're really not designed for longevity. They are really just designed for an effective use for a craft project that probably isn't going to survive for many years. But if you're decorating a vintage piece of furniture that's going to live in someone's home for a long time, or you're trying to restore a family heirloom antique piece, then actually what you want is products that are going to last for an awful long time. You don't just want a product that is going to last for a short period of time. So that, now it's not dry all the way through, it will continue to crackle, but I can now add my crackle paste to my edges safely, without fear of it splodging every which way. And as I say, I know I can add more and go over other bits as I want to. Anyway, so let's just, and this is, as I say, one of the products that has the gift of 20% off, so it's worth loading up if you can afford to, but obviously not if you can't, because that would not be a prudent activity. And I wouldn't wish to encourage anyone to spend pennies that they don't actually have to spare at any time of the year, let alone Christmas. There we are. So let me just cover that onto there and give that a wee little blast. I think, guys, we might well be going over the hour. Where did you get your hat from? Right, as it's not as noisy. I bought this from a shop in Wales that sells stamps, but it's a Ranger heat gun, Ranger Heat It craft tool. So I'm sure if you look on any search engine for it, then you'll be able to get it come up. On a search engine with lots of places that sell it, rather than me recommending just one shop. I don't know, I don't think Charmaine sells them in her shop. You might check out Laura at That's Crafty. She's certainly got some heat guns. but possibly not this one, and it's definitely not, if she has, it's definitely not included in the gift of 20% discount on products. But it wasn't a silly price, and it's effective. I'm sorry, Charmaine. I had a feeling that you didn't. I have to say I love it. I do like this as a heat gun because it is effective, and but it's quiet at the same time, so you can hear what I'm saying. You might not want to hear what I'm saying, but you might just want to. Be crafty does. There we are. So that's someone being very, very helpful, but they are worth it. And as I say, a little Google search and I'm sure you will find lots of suppliers of it. So let's just do the other sides of this. We are definitely going to be over the hour. I apologise, but hey ho, you can come back and watch as and when you want to. There's no one says that you have to watch the whole thing all in one go. That's the joy of a Facebook Live, is that you can come back and see it at any stage you want. Let me just take that off there. There we are. We'll just add the last couple I've used cracking paints for, and those definitely took less time on the lives, but hey ho, so be it. Right, we'll lid that and dry this. That's Crafty Sell Them Too. There we are. So if you're ordering some of your essentials, Alison, if you're ordering essentials then from That's Crafty with the discount, then why not stick the heat gun in your shopping basket at the same time? Ranger's a good company, and I think Anthony's put the link up in the comments so that people can see that it's there. And I'm sorry, I'm actually well, but I still have a post-COVID cough. And for those of you that don't know, I went out to Greece to do a craft class, or a weekend of crafting, and came back with a very unwanted present. So, and it continues to give in the form of me coughing and spluttering a bit like someone with a terrible chest, which I don't have. But, you know, we can all but do our best. Right, so that is finished with the white, and the eagle eyes of you will remember that I put more of that cracking paste primer on the base. And this one is not in stock at That's Crafty, but if you're wanting an alternative way of getting black crackle on your base, then if you get the one component crackle or the That's Crafty crackle glaze, and paint that on top of the white surface instead of your cracking paste primer, and then add black paint over the top, you'll get a result that is different, but you will definitely get a black crackle effect. So experiment with what's going on. There we are. I'm just lucky because I've got all of these mediums sitting at home to play with, but I appreciate that not everyone does, so I like to give alternatives for people to try out and use, because it's important that we don't always just use every product under the sun and not think about other people's budgets and the like. Hi Helen, thank you for joining us this evening. And nearly always there's an alternative for what I'm using, so if feel free always to ask that question, because as I say, much as I know I am very lucky by having lots of products, it doesn't mean that everyone else is in such a fortunate position, and so it's quite helpful I think, to know what you can substitute for either the same effect or a similar effect. Let me just skinny some of that off so that it's not taking forever and a month of Sundays to dry. Let's say I will do the back of it off camera, because I'm only going to, in effect, repeat this. I'm not doing any magic jiggery pokery off camera. I'm literally just repeating this process. I love the That's Crafty crackle base, it has to be said. The effect is different, there's no question about it, but it is a very effective glaze. Right, I'm going to stop there with that, because some of this has not got crackle on, the undercoat on, and we'll give that, we'll stick that there for the moment. Ooh, she says, throwing lids everywhere. Just spotted that gorgeous crackle. Yeah, but it is just wonderful, and it just works every single time. The liquid wax is incredible, and I don't know of any other company that produces a similar product either. So I can pop that on there. Right, let's get rid of that. So you can see that I've got, because I put the white paint under the bottom, I've now got white cracks, and that's the whole purpose of this as a project, was to celebrate the black and the white, and not have it all identical. So there we are in what we're doing. So let's just, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pop that over there with heat gun near it. There we are. Let's pop it that way, because I have a collection. There we are. We pop these of baubles and stars. Now these have come from a number of different Stamperia moulds, and the one that's in stock has slightly different baubles but does have the stars, but the process is the same regardless, and could be used with any any mould that has baubles or snowflakes or stars, or you name it. And these have again been primed with bonding fluid. As I say, let me just give these a little bit of a, I'm going to end up with yucky mucky sticky fingers in a minute, because three-dimensional focal embellishments are definitely going to need to have a layer of degree of handling to make sure I've covered everything. So that'll be mucky icky sticky fingers. Mixed media stuff. Yeah, Annie, who from Crafting Moods manages to make her projects without getting icky sticky mickey fingers. I mean, she does do different projects to me, to be fair to her, but real life I end up with icky mucky sticky fingers, so why shouldn't everyone else? There we are. And this will help dry these off at the same time and make sure I've got a covering. And you think, your beautiful baubles, and why on earth are you painting them all black? Well, because I wanted a monochrome tree. There's something very different. Am I going to leave them all black? No, I am not. They are going to get additional treatments, but within the monochrome and gold family. And I've deliberately decided I would use gold rather than silver, because I do know that gold is not in the monochrome family. Thank you, Joan. I'm glad you agree with me. You definitely do have to get mucky hands when crafting. You cannot do things like this without having mucky hands. Well, you could, I guess, but you know. But black paint, it's going to get everywhere, isn't it? Yeah, I better not get it over this top, that is for sure. I don't normally do Christmas jumpers and things, but I've been asked to do a show on the 22nd of December on Create and Craft to help someone else out, which is fine. So like an idiot, a helpful idiot, I just said yes. And I would do it just before Christmas and on my birthday, because why wouldn't you? So I know I'm going to be spending my lovely birthday in a car for several hours. Though, to be fair, I am going down the night before. I'm doing part of the ODS for Dawn, Dawn Bibby Creations, and I'm doing the 10 o'clock and the 2 o'clock shows, I think. Are you down there, Louise? Are you in the studio? There we are. Right, so that's those blacked out, and my hands equally blacked out and messy. Let me see. So let me just re-angle that at that, because I've still got wet paste on there. Let's lid that, because I've been reasonably proficient at covering that. Who needs heating? You don't know. I think the problem it is that there are so many products on the market that it's very difficult. I've been crafting for actually, to be fair, since I was a tiny child, because my mother taught needlecraft and needlework, so I was making my own clothes when I was tiny. What time are you in the studio, Lou? Because I'm likely to have to go to a warehouse and then can come back via the studio if you're there for not doing the 9 o'clock at 8, 9 o'clock at night hours. In which case I might not be there or not opt to stay. So there we are. So let me just cover that one. Right, now I can turn that round. 4 and 8. So if I ended up at a certain person's warehouse, we could come back and have a natter. So you'll be in the studio. You'll be reaching in the studio for a 4 o'clock show. About 2 when I'm on air. So actually you will be there at the same time as me. If you're aiming to be at the studio, because I'll come off air at 3. We could have a quick chinwag and then I can clear up after we've had a chinwag. That would work. So, for the base of my piece onto these, I'm going to add some different icon pieces that are here. I do apologise, lady, I'm doing a Sam Thompson and I was prepared, so we'll be so we are going to run over, but hey ho, that is just life. We're not, it's just because when you're doing mixed media pieces, you've got all of this layering to do. Not a problem though. I look forward to it. It's lovely to catch up with like-minded people in person, as opposed to them just being sort of I wouldn't say anonymous faces, but people that you know via Facebook. It's just lovely. So this is back to my white acrylic paint, and I better not splatter it all over the black that I've just done, because that wouldn't be the most helpful of activities. These ones these little icons come from the Rose de Parfum mould set. Now I know that that is on Laura's website. Again, it's not part of the deal, but I am also aware that Leonie has an a new and exclusive launching on Monday at 4. So and I suspect as the only new products that Stamperia have that haven't been to air are the Rose de Perfume ones, then on the 23rd, but going down on the 22nd. So what time are you going to arrive, Charmaine? Because coffee's always good for me. Right, now then, I know this is going to be another layer, and I do apologise, but I don't like adding antique paste to things until I've sealed the surfaces. And I do think that sealing, and this is when I mess up my my nice brushes, so I always grab an older and crackered one. So I am using pouring glaze for to seal my surfaces, and it also gives my ornaments a shiny surface in the process. And just because it says pouring glaze does not mean it has to be poured, but it will self level. Be in the ship at about 3. Cool. So yeah, I think coffee sounds good. We'll message afterwards because that will work. I am off air at 3. I will have to then clear up the mess, deliver stuff back to of course it has to be coffee and cake. It'll be my birthday, Anthony. It'd be rude not to have coffee and cake. With like-minded friends. Totally, definitely. We'll just, I'm sure the ship will be able to manage us to do a tea for us or something. I didn't think you usually stayed in the ship. I know it's cheap and cheerful. We'll certainly be able to get a drink there, if nothing else. I don't know about the rest of the eateries around Oundle. When you're adding the glaze, it's important not to fill up all the texture in your ornaments, because ultimately I want that texture to be showing through. There we are. You say double up. Heat gun going. At least it's keeping me warm, I have to say. That's the other advantage of having a heat gun on at the same time. But it is working for me. There we are. Very good. I think if you're not doing very many, it's cheap, it's effective. I think it's I've never had any issues from having stayed there. To be fair, though I tend to stay up at the Travel Lodge at Thrapston nowadays when I go down, because it's on my way in and out. Rather than staying in the ship itself. But the downside is that they don't do food, so they do Travelodge style food, which is never necessarily the best thing. Oh, she says, right, well that wasn't quite what we intended to do, ladies. So the advantage of having added that, because clearly that the white paint on there was not dry. There we are, we might leave those. So let's give that a good blast dry, get those dry. We woke up yesterday to snow, and big fluffy lumps of snow coming down, and then it's all disappeared overnight. My beds and feet hang out the window. The beds are too short. It's your fault for being taller than most of us. Some of us are slightly vertically challenged, don't have that as a problem. Right, let's get these covered with stuff. There we are. It's better. We're not shifting paint now. The next steps won't take. There's a very nice Italian nearby. Okay, which one are you thinking of? Okay, I'm all up for suggestions for nice places to eat. I won MasterChef of the Northwest in the year 2000, so I'm rather fussy about 6 weeks after my son was born. So I'm rather fussy about my food, I'm afraid. Did you know snow in Harrogate today? No, I don't live in Harrogate, Jean. I live in south of Manchester. So there we are. Let's just turn that around there and there and there. So the pouring glaze is part of the 20% off deal. So here becomes a little bit of changing around. So I have 2 pots. One is antique paste, one is wax paste. Unfortunately they're fairly similar both in size and shape, which doesn't help, and I think people often get very confused by them. So I'm going to try and explain the differences. So let me just grab. I keep a pot with a little bit of terps or white spirit in it, so that because the antique paste and the waxes are both solvent based products, but the key difference is that the antique paste will sit in or around all of the details. If I was to do this, cover everything with an ordinary wax, then what will happen is that the ordinary wax will be unmovable. Okay, but because this is wax based, but antiquing paste, I can now lift off the colour where I want it, and you can't with just a wet baby wipe, and you cannot do that with an ordinary wax. And I'm going to do some with the wax to show you the difference, but I wanted a few of these with the antique paste on them, so it just gives and now I've got it so warm that it's really quite liquid. I don't normally melt it before putting it in, but hey ho. So this is why I like the antique paste. You can buy the vintage antiquing paste from Stamperia quite happily, and you will get a beautiful brown effect, but you've only got a brown effect because it only comes in the brown. You could do it to some extent with the antiquing, with the patina gels and the antiquing gels, but they aren't metallic. And at Christmas I like a little bit of bling. It's about the only time of year that you'll see me using a little bit of bling. So if I wipe this off, I'm now restoring, and it just allows me to pop that into the background. She says, and that one I'm clearly cooking, but hey ho, so we'll do this one, and then we're going to swap to the let's turn that off before we set fire to the place. I can see that I've overheated this and bubbled the pouring glaze that I've used to seal it, so this one may not lift off quite the same way, but hey ho, we'll see. No, not bad, not bad. So the white areas will become less white over time. products where the glaze is on and thick, so you can lift it off. So that is those. So let's just add this onto these, which I'm going to pop on the base. So it's just a different way of adding colour, and it's really not very complicated to do. Yeah. So now you can see all of the detail that was in those pieces. And I'm clearly going to have to order myself a new one of these from somewhere. That might be a challenge because they're not actually that readily available in the UK. The antique paste is not one of the products that Laura has in stock, I'm afraid. I'm clearly going to have to bring it back. It might, to be fair, be on the Create and Craft website, but possibly not. Okie dokie, that sounds like a brilliant plan, Charmaine. I look forward to that. It's totally about knowing how the products work, Anthony. You know, there's no point in you can experiment with products to get them to do what you want them to do, but I do feel very strongly that the starting point for anyone is to learn how to use them as they were originally intended, and then once you've learned how to use them as originally intended, then you can go your own way and experiment and see what else you can get out of them. If you because that seems to me to be sensible. If you can get products to do more for you than their original intention, that's also cool. What was the paste, did you say? That's hard to get hold of. This is Pentart antique paste, and there are lots and lots of different colours. So there's white, silver, gold, copper, brass. I think that's about it. And I use it. I'm using it because it's designed to be metallic, but to lift off, rather than just to sit on the surface. That's why I'm wanting this to have a luxurious feel, even though I'm using lots of crackle. But I'm also wanting to keep to a reasonable limited colour palette. So the antique paste lifts off and sits in all the nooks and the crannies, and whereas this is wax paste metal. And I'm just going to add, and the difference here is that this is going to sit on top. So this one is sitting in the crevices, whereas this one sits on the top surface. So it's highlighted all of that filigree detail on that bauble. So here, I happen to know that there is a snowflake on this one. There are some lines here. Yeah, and I can add it around the corners just to make it cohesive. But if I try to lift this off with a same wet cloth, it's not budging, yeah, because it's a wax paste, whereas this one I can scrub off when it's not set. So the two have, just to have very different, be wary, have very different long-term effects. So it's again, this is about knowing what your products do and choosing the right one for the make you're using. And of course I want a gold star, which is why if I try to wipe, because this has got very little texture, it's more of a flat shape. If I used the antiquing paste on it, I would end up with a black star rather than a gold star. So hence the choice of the different products. So let me stick that into there. We'll lid that. So we've got different effects, different results. There we are. Shuffle that over there, shuffle that over there, stick that over there, move them out of the way, move them out of the way. We're going to come back to our tree and say, I will crackle the back at another date, because you don't need me to be here at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, I could be here at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now at this point we could add more details. We could add some stenciling. You see I've got black onto there, which is not what I wanted, but hey ho, that way I won't paint off. So we're going to add that there. I feel I need a gold star some days. Okay, Anthony. Okay, let me just grab some glue. So I would tend to use gel medium for this rather than anything else, but this is the glue I've got to hand. So I want a little star up there. I know I want one of my icon. Let me just turn this round. It's going to be on the wonk, ladies, and I will finish it and post finished pictures of all 3 of my makes using similar techniques, and I'm clearly going to end up having to add. So one extra tip, you see I've got paste on there. Now if I grab, I won't do it now, but I know that I can lift off that. You see I'm spreading it everywhere, so I will do it now before I make an even bigger mess. I know that if I grab some what clear, she can find some transparent wax. So this is mucky, unclean transparent wax. So I know I don't know if you can see I've got paste there, and I don't want that. So if I add, this is literally just clear wax and a clean, as opposed to a sticky mucky things, and give it a little rub. I will be able to lift the gold off there. I might then struggle to get there we are, and I might just choose to put more gold on, but there we are. So the transparent wax will take off paste in the wrong area, which is always a positive, isn't it, I find. So let us see what we've got. We're going to pop you there, we're going to pop you there. We might pop that one there, we might stick that there, we might actually do yeah, that will work. And we've got some extra bits and pieces, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some extra bits. So so I'm just trying to balance my composition by fiddling around a little bit with that. So, and we're going to ignore that, and these extra pieces I'm going to pop on the sides of these. So let us just, right, that will need some gel medium in here, and I'm going to use gel medium, heavy body gel matte, and I know that this dries opaque, but because I don't really want the shiny surface, so let's just pop that onto there. I know I've got a bit of an overhang, so there we are. And I'm deliberately choosing to bridge between my the planks that are on part of the base tree, because I think that will work quite nicely. There we are. So ladies, we are just about there, which is always a positive feature when you've run over time. But hey ho, I don't somehow think, you know, projects take, well, it's important that we get those vaguely straight, and I'm definitely looking at this on the wonk, which might not be the best way of gluing stuff on, but hey ho, there we are. We'll take that excess off there before we have it on, because as I say, I know it dries opaque, so you will see it if you don't lift it off. Yes, I am being fairly generous, stroke overly generous, but hey ho, there we are. So let's just straighten you up. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. We have completed, or almost completed, a monochrome project with just that little bit of gold. As I say, I will crackle the back of it, and then I'm going to add these remaining pieces to the sides of the block at the front. I might add a little bit more mattes, and I might decide to add a bit of sparkle. But I'm sort of thinking I quite like this very different take on a Christmas tree. So that's all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday afternoon with me. I hope you all have a safe time, and that whatever you have planned for the holidays, that you are able to enjoy as planned, and that you stay well and safe. I will be around, so if anyone is feeling terrible, wants just someone to natter to, and is feeling a bit lost, then please feel free to message. What sort of sparkle would I would probably use the rose gold eco glitters on top of some ice paste, Elaine. So please do you know, don't sit at Christmas feeling down and there's no one there for you. I completely understand the issues of being down and depressed, as I've had that t-shirt in the past. So stay safe. I'm here for you. I will no doubt be doing some more lives. I'm not quite sure when. I'll negotiate that with both Charmaine and Lou, and I'll let everyone know if I survive my Italian coffee and cake with the pair of them on my birthday. Bye bye for now. Oops, she says pressing the wrong buttons. There we are. We'll hit the right buttons to stop streaming.